interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 117 of Vikings Uncensored. We have done it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final Friday before we actually have football-related activity starting. Of course, the rookies report on Sunday, the veterans report on Tuesday. So by the time we have next week's show, we should have a little bit of news out of training camp coming in. So we made it through the dog days of summer, the doldrums, the this, that, and everything else. But football season's back, ladies and gentlemen. A couple of news items that came about here earlier this week that we want to touch on first and foremost before we get into it. And then a little while later on here, we're going to take a look at some of the key position battles that are going to be going on during training camp. And then Lance and I will also give an offensive and defensive player to watch during training camp. So stick around for that. If you're already on here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You never miss a show with us. So without further ado, let's get started. Idea to you and you.
I'm from Sweden. Isn't that weird?
Yes, you mean the schnitzen, hein, the stern, the bird, the bird, the
Fucking A, that's like 3 damn fucking references in one joke right there.
Yeah, and like 3 different countries too. We're international, ladies and gentlemen. We throw everything in there.
Guten Tag.
Yes. Ufta.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Yes.
All right.
Of course, yes. Without all that being done now, of course, the biggest NFL-related news on Thursday morning. The NFL owners unanimously approved the sale of the Washington Commanders from Dan Snyder to Josh Harris. Of course, Josh Harris is part of ownership groups that also own the Philadelphia 76ers of the NBA and the New Jersey Devils of the NHL. He's also a minority owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I assume he's going to have to sell that now.
You would think so.
You can't. It'd be a conflict of interest. You can't own parts of 2 teams. So, and also a minority owner in Joe Gibbs Racing over in the NASCAR circuit. So, and I guess Harris's group had tried to buy the Denver Broncos last year, but got outbid by the Walton family, of course, of Walmart fame. So his group is successful, and Dan Snyder is now gone from the NFL. It's a good thing, I think, for Washington. It could be a bad thing for the NFL because Dan Snyder is a vindictive son of a bitch, and he knows where all the bodies are buried. So, this may not be the last we hear of Mr. Snyder. So we have to keep our ears to the ground on that one. But
yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Unless there was something in there that says, okay, you know, we'll approve this deal and whatever all else.
Keep your trap shut.
Yeah. Shut your freaking pie hole.
Yo. But then if word comes out that that's one of the stipulations, that's not good either. Then
no, that's a bigger black eye for the league. So like I said, I don't know that this is the end of it, but we'll see. But then again, Thursday morning. So this is some Vikings news. Rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison was charged with reckless driving. It was 3 a.m. Thursday morning. Pulled over doing 140 miles per hour in his Lamborghini. And of course, when this came out on Thursday, according to Vikings social media, the kid is going to do a life sentence of hard labor in solitary confinement for all this. They just completely lost their mind. Like the Vikings are gonna cut him. He's gonna be suspended by the league. Yada 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 yada.
No.
He's gonna get a reprimand.
Fine. He's gonna get fined by the state. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and knowing how traffic tickets are in Minnesota, it's probably going to be about $25 less than what he paid for that Lamborghini to begin with.
You know what, though? Honestly, we were all kids once. Not an excuse for Mr. Addison at all. But you know what? He wasn't drinking. Didn't have a fucking handgun on him, thank God. And there was no drugs involved. The kid was just, You know what? Nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. is what I've always lived by in my life. You know what? Thank God he didn't kill anybody, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's been the story before as well in this league.
Yeah.
So
Mr. Henry Ruggs, yeah.
You know, let's just hope that, Jefferson kind of pulls him aside and says, hey, you need to knock it off. You know?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, yeah, it was an incredibly stupid thing to be doing. I can't say much about it because I know in my past, I've done 140 miles an hour. It wasn't a Lamborghini, but I've done 140 miles an hour before.
Unicycle.
Yeah. I might try
unicycle, dude.
Going downhill in a Red Ryder or in a Radio Flyer wagon.
Hell yeah. Nah, thankfully we're not with the main, media, people like that, so we can look at it from a realistic point of view.
Mm-hmm.
We were kids. I did some stupid shit when I was that age.
I've done stupid shit as an adult.
Not an excuse for Addison because he's in a position of being a role model for one, and he's a professional. Act like it,
Yeah, and that's all I got to say about it is you got to be smarter than that, kid. You're in a high profile spot now.
Learn from it,
right? So knock that shit off,
right?
And be a little smarter next time.
That's all. I think honestly, KOC should pop him at number 5 on the fucking depth chart. Make him work his way up to whatever it might be.
Now, I thought about this when I was coming home from work tonight. The perfect punishment for him is park that fucking Lamborghini and make him drive a rusted out 1993 Geo Metro all the way through training camp.
Geo Metro. Definitely not a Ford Pinto. We don't want that.
No, because those blow up, but no. But no, get him a rusty old 1993 Geo Metro. Okay, kid, we're parking that Lamborghini in the garage at TCO. When you learned your lesson, you can have it back, but until then, here's your ride.
Right. Nah, fuck that. Give him a moped.
Yeah. But then there was one other bit of Vikings news this week. On Wednesday, the Vikings had waived cornerback John Reed, who, to be honest, I didn't even know he was on the roster to begin with. So, because I think we missed him when we talked about the roster breakdown here a couple weeks ago. But
oh well,
yeah, our bad. I'm sorry.
Yep.
But anywho, that's about. Oh, there was one other major announcement put out by the team this week, and we'll let the team show it to you. Just check this out.
Up in the North Country, they have a total belief about the Vikings, who once sailed the uncharted seas from the bases of the North. The Minnesota Vikings are cut to the same jib. When the Vikings come to play, they don't run away from violence.
The Vikings secondary also punishes people.
Bruising, burling football. That's the package the Vikings have sold to all Minnesota and to the National Football League.
That's
Beautiful.
right, ladies and gentlemen. The Vikings announced their throwback jerseys, well, entire uniforms actually, going back to the 1960s. And all I got to say is those are fucking awesome.
They're beautiful, dude. Honestly, I mean, I don't understand how some people can complain about how they think they look ugly. I think they're freaking sweet.
This is probably the most unified I've seen Viking social media on anything in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I saw maybe 1 or 2 people that are just like, yeah, or somebody who doesn't really know, well, what's different from what they're currently wearing kind of stuff. But those things are beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you share this same sentiment. I've seen it all over the place, but I'm going to reiterate it now. Mark, Ziggy, we need to make those the permanent uniform going forward. The current setup is fine. It's okay. But this is classic. This is beautiful. This is what Vikings uniforms should look like.
The first team that actually has historic uniforms as their uniforms. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Although I'm going to give some other teams credit here too, because the throwbacks there's like 3 or 4 different throwbacks that got released this week. The Seattle Seahawks went back to their old style 90s uniforms too, which they never should have changed away from that and went to all that ugly neon green and all this other stuff. Right. This is basically the same style uniform that the Dan Foutses and Steve Largents and all those of the World War. Classic style. Love that one as well.
Fouts
the Atlanta Falcons.
Seattle, did he?
Huh?
Did Fouts even?
Not Fouts. Not Fouts. Sorry. Fouts is
Jim Zorn.
Yeah. Dave Craig. I was thinking Dave Craig and said Dan Fouts.
There you go.
Because it's easy to get those two mixed up. You know?
Oh yeah, they're like the same guy. You ever seen them in the same room? No, yeah.
Right. You could swap their jerseys and nobody would know the difference. My bad.
I had to catch you on one, dude.
Yeah, you got me on that one. So we'll leave that in the show. But then also the Atlanta Falcons put out that they're going back to the old red helmets and stuff. That I like that style as well.
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns put out an alternate. They're going with white helmets with the brown and orange stripe down the middle of it.
Sweet.
And I have heard rumors. This has not been confirmed yet, but the Vikings did their whiteout deal last year. I've heard rumors, not substantiated by any really credible source, but I've heard it from multiple locations that the Vikings may decide to do that again later in the year. But this time maybe with the white helmet also.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Which I've seen videos of it. Looks pretty freaking sweet.
It does. It does look pretty sweet.
But anyway, back to these, the throwbacks. They're gonna roll them out with the season opener against Tampa Bay. They have not announced any other games as of yet, but they can use them throughout the season. Yeah, whenever they want, really. I mean, if you look at like Detroit, they've used their throwbacks half of the season before, So
yeah.
I think if the crowd reaction, everything is as we expect it to be with this uniform combo, we can see it multiple times this year, and I hope we do, honestly.
Because like I said, all the colors are really being used in the jersey as well. The gold is in there, other than just around the neck or whatever.
Well, and I've myself personally, I've always liked the block numbers with the shadow box.
I have always been
yellow
a big fan
around
of those as well. Yeah,
it's kind of similar to. I mean, the like the late '80s or the early to mid '90s to up
like
until 2005, the Carter Moss years, all that stuff. John Randall had that, except they didn't have the stripe on the side. They had the just the Vikings logo on the sleeve. But but anyway, I'm excited as hell to see him on the field, and I think it's going to be pretty sweet. And I think we'll see him more than once this year. We'll put it that way.
I agree.
But with that, let's move on to training camp. As we had mentioned earlier, training camp rookies report on Sunday, veterans on Tuesday, and camp begins in earnest on Wednesday. I believe somewhere in that Tuesday-ish range, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi and maybe a few other guys are going to have press conferences, things like that. So with that, we wanted to take a look at some of the key positional battles, I guess, as we see them anyway, going into the 2023 season. Offense, not too many. We got a couple there. We'll hit those first. Of course, the running back position, now with Dalvin Cook no longer on the team, and the reins apparently being handed over to Alexander Mattison. But the burning question still is it Mattison going to be more of that lead bell cow back, or is he going to be the lead back in a running back by committee approach? We still have Ty Chandler, Kene Nwangwu, and Dwayne McBride fighting for RB2, RB3.
Right.
As we talked about the other night, I don't think they keep 4 running backs this year just because of having to have that spot for the third quarterback.
And then you got Hamia too, at fullback, and you just extended him. So I mean,
right. So he's in effect your fourth running back.
Right.
I mean, as far as battles go, I think at least to start with anyway, Chandler has the inside track for RB2.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see how that room shakes out and if they're able to sneak anybody onto the practice squad out of those running backs.
I think a lot of that depends on if McBride shows out the way a lot of people expect him to. It's going to be awful hard not to keep him on the roster.
Yeah.
Kene Nwangwu, of course, 3 kick return touchdowns in the last 2 years, but hasn't done much other than that as far,
right.
Now in OTAs and minicamp, he was getting a lot of run, and by all accounts, sounded like he was doing quite well. So I honestly, unless McBride just looks like crap, which I don't expect.
Right.
It's going to be awful hard to get one of those guys over to the practice squad.
And, I hate to say it, but it's also possible that somebody goes down with an injury as well during, training camp or preseason in that group. You never know.
Yeah.
And then they just go on to injured reserve or whatever.
Right. And
I don't hope for that to happen, but
no, and we are not saying that teams may stash a player on injured reserve just so they don't lose him, because the teams would never do anything like that. So
not at all, dude. Shame on you for even bringing it up.
I'm just saying that the teams would never do anything like that.
I
wasn't advocating for it.
Got Ross Perot on tonight.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? All right, I'm done.
That was good.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a possibility. You know, if somebody gets banged up a little bit during preseason, that they may find out that the injury is worse than what they feared and goes on injured reserve for, they got to miss the first 6 weeks.
And then they can deal with it then.
Then they either got to activate them or put them on IR for a year.
Yep.
So depends on how well everybody does.
That's really a position that that's why that's what we're talking about. That's really a position that's up in the air right now. We don't know how that's gonna play out.
No, I would be shocked if Chandler isn't on the roster, because he, like we've talked about, he's inside track for RB2.
I hate to say it, but I truly believe that Nwangwu is on the bubble.
I think he is too, just unless he can show that he can do more than return kicks, because we talked about this before with that new fair catch rule and stuff. They're trying to all but eliminate the kick returner position.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because at this point in time, it's going to be pretty much, okay, the other team scores, the next team gets the ball 25-yard line, just start from there.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what it's going to be eventually.
Kind of what they're doing right now without actually saying we're not kicking off anymore.
Where'd he go? Keep knocking the table.
But then the next position that should have a little bit of interest and intrigue, not so much at the top.
Right.
Because we know that this is the wide receiver position. We know that, of course, Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and Jordan Addison are your wide receiver 1 through 3.
See, I don't think that's set in stone yet. I honestly think KOC needs to put Addison at 4 and make him work his way up. Not like a Zimmer, like week 1 and then not have him play at all. Fuck that. But I don't think KJ's spot at number 2 is in stone. I think outside of Justin Jefferson, this whole lineup at receiver is yet to be determined, because I think Naylor has it in him to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. No,
it's a good problem to have right now. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely. Naylor's a lock for the roster. He's at worst wide receiver 4.
Yeah. Yep.
But then we have right now a total of 13 wide receivers on the roster.
That's nuts, dude.
That's a lot of fucking wide receivers.
That's a Kevin O'Connell staple right there, though, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, yeah. We only kept 5 last year. I think we probably keep 6 this year.
That's possible, yeah.
It's possible. The guys that are fighting for that last 1 to 2 positions, of course, we have Jalen Reagor, we have Brandon Powell, we have Tristan Jackson, Blake Prohl, Thayer Thomas, Malik Knowles, Cephas Johnson, Lucky Jackson, and Garrett Mogg.
And a lot of those guys could be snuck under not even snuck, but just placed on the practice squad after, training camp ends or whatever.
They could end up, they could go walking carrying Roman candles and probably end up on the practice squad.
Tristan Jackson's been fighting for a spot the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, and he's shown up in preseason enough to get himself on the practice squad, which I think he stands a good chance of doing so again this year.
Yep.
Jalen Reagor, we've talked about this before.
I'm done with that.
I'm done with Reagor. I don't think he makes the 53.
Especially, he made more boneheaded mistakes than he did great plays last year, in my opinion.
The Colts game, he caused 2 interceptions in that Colts game because he ran the wrong route on one and stopped on the other one.
Yep.
And especially when you've got guys like Powell and Malik Knowles who can return punts
Bingo.
Jalen Reagor is easily becoming.
Honestly, he might catch on somewhere else, but his chance at being the number one receiver anywhere is done.
He's a potential candidate for the XFL or the USFL.
Right on, yes.
Or hey, the new Arena League that just got announced, of which Minnesota will have a team. So
nice.
Like I said, Reagor, I think he's gone. Brandon Powell, I think stands a decent shot of making the roster just because of his familiarity with KOC and the fact that he can do special teams, he can return kicks and punts. Tristan Jackson, we mentioned. Blake Prohl has been around forever.
I'm about done with the Blake Prohl experiment too. Honestly.
Been hurt for about as long as he's been here.
He's been hurt for as long as he's been in the league, man.
Yeah,
it's going on year 3 right now. This would be year 3 for him, with nothing to show.
No, he's got the name. He's got the name. That's it. Yeah. Thayer Thomas,
an unsung guy that has potential.
Yeah. The kid I'm a big fan of, and I'll talk about him more later, Malik Knowles. I think he stands a pretty good chance of making the roster.
Right. He was a workhorse in college at receiver too.
Mm-hmm. Cephas Johnson. I couldn't pick him out of an empty room.
No, I couldn't either, to be honest. Nothing against Cephas, but
no, it just Lucky Jackson, another guy that they just picked up as a camp body.
Interesting though, because he did have a decent career in what was it? Was it the XFL or the AFL or the
USFL? I forget. I think it came out of the USFL, I believe.
But yeah, he was one of the better receivers in that league at the time.
He was. Yeah. So I mean, there's potential there.
Right.
And then Garrett Mogg, of course. Yeah. The only thing I know about him is he went to little brother up north at University of North Dakota. So
gotcha.
That's 2 strikes against him right there. And yes, I know that Jim Kleinsasser went to UND as well. That's for you, Dave Stefano.
There you go, left.
Dave's a big Kleinsasser fan, so.
I like to be some Kleinsasser. I mean, how can?
Yeah, I did. I did too. When I hated him in college because he killed us every time we played against him.
He was the cornerstone of that generation and that team. At that point in time.
Yep. I remember I almost got into a fight at a Vikings game once because of him, because he did his patented catch the ball and run 3 yards and trip over the yard stripe.
Yep.
And I made some comment to my friends I was sitting with. Well, what do you expect? He went to UND, and all I heard behind me was, "Hey!" And I turned around and he's like, "I played football for UND."
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm an NDSU alum. He just kind of glared at me for a second, then he laughed, and it was all good. But I mean, yeah, like I said, with 13 wide receivers on the roster, there are going to be 7 to 8 guys that are pretty sad when that final cutdown day comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least
make the best of your opportunity, guys.
Yep. I mean, a couple of these guys, if not more, will ultimately make the practice squad.
Right.
But by showing out in preseason, they might find themselves a job someplace else too.
Might make it hard for these coaches to. Well, yeah, that and any coach in the league honestly did not pick them up. So
right. But that's about all the intrigue on the offensive side of things. Now over to the defensive side of things, where, as we all know, things were great and wonderful, sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns farting on waterfalls and whatever else last year.
Amazing last year, great defense.
Yeah, gummy bears all over hell and all kinds of great shit. But
we were done with Donatel by week 4. I bet that this is at least when it was. By week 4, we're like, fuck it, Donatel.
Well, remember week 2 against Philadelphia on Monday Night Football when
they're calling it out on the announcers are, yeah. Yeah,
Troy Aikman was sitting there for 2/3 of the game, just every time. Why are they running this 3 high shell coverage? Why are they running this 3 high shell coverage? The whole freaking game. And he wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't. And it was, and you know, sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah.
And it did.
But we'll start off with the defensive line. At least penciled in starters are at defensive end are Dean Lowry and Harrison Phillips. And Kiaris Tonga gets the start, or at least initially anyway, at nose tackle.
Deservingly so.
Mm-hmm. Beyond that, we, of course, have Asezi Adamayo, Jacqueline Roy, Jonathan Bullard, Ross Blacklock, Sheldon Day.
Fuckers can go. Both those 2 guys can go. Blacklock and Bullard.
Both go. Yeah, I mean, Blacklock did nothing last year.
No.
And Bullard, even though he was a starter, he was just a guy.
He was average, right? Below average.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider him average. He was marginal.
Right. I wouldn't even expect a spot for him this year unless he somewhere finds the fountain of awesomeness along the way.
Yeah.
Lynch too. You get rid of him as well. We're getting to him, but yeah.
Yeah. James Lynch is the next guy. I mean, you and I have both been big James Lynch supporters throughout the years.
Fell off the face of the earth last year.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the entire defense did, to be fair, but Lynch, I think we've seen the best that we're going to see out of him.
Yeah, we've seen his ceiling, honestly. The first 2 years he was in the league, I was all about him, and like I said, last season he kind of just fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
then we also have Junior Aho, Kelvin Avery, and TJ Smith. Now, Avery, he's a guy I think stands a pretty good chance of catching on the 53. He's that big bowling ball. You know, he's 6 foot, 345. Yeah, the kid out of Illinois. No, he's a true nose tackle.
Yeah,
345 pounds. I mean, he's kind of that.
He's
big,
got some weight to him. I'm about 345, so.
Yeah, he's a pretty stout dude that could work himself into the backup role behind Kiaris Tonga.
Yep, get Bullard out of there, get Lynch out of there, get Blacklock out of there.
Yeah,
I like what I've seen out of Mayo. I said that last week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like
Jacqueline Roy has shown up quite well in rookie minicamp.
He's a nasty type of player that you would like to have on your line. So
yeah, and I know they've been playing Roy at nose tackle, but he's like 305, 308, something like that. So realistically, he's probably just as well suited to play.
You can pop it anywhere along that line. Then
honestly,
yeah, nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean he's suited to play that 5 tech and back up Harrison Phillips or that kind of thing. It's a good
problem for a player to have when you can play multiple positions along that defensive line. Mm-hmm. Especially when you had like Robeson doing it years ago and Griffin as well, when they were interchanging from tackle to end.
Yeah. And, some of these guys that are a little on the smaller side, when you get to obvious passing downs, you can swap them out with the big nasties and get a little bit more speed and some interior pass rush too.
Bingo.
So
exactly.
And, with
and Flores will do that.
Oh, absolutely. Flores is going to rush everybody from everywhere. So
yeah, I'm excited then.
I am too. Adamayo, he's a defensive end. He's
going to take a next step this coming season, I believe.
I think he's got the potential to.
He was get into the race towards the end of last year, all over the field. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, he's going to get into the rotation, I think. So, but yeah, like you said, Bullard and Blacklock can go.
Lynch,
TJ Smith is just a guy.
Yeah, if Sheldon, you can, maybe get Lynch on your practice squad, but that's about as far as I'd go with him.
Yeah, Sheldon Day and another guy, Junior Aho. I know absolutely nothing about him. So then, of course, keeping the trend, we'll just move back to the next level. Inside linebackers, Jordan Hicks, of course, will start on the 1. Brian Asamoah, unless he can screw something up, will start at the other side.
Yeah.
Then of course you have Troy Reeder with the veteran presence back there, who was running with the ones early on in off-season activities, and I think he'll probably start training camp as the one. They're going to make Asamoah earn his way in there, but
I think the consensus idea is just to have eventually Asamoah overtake Reeder at that spot.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll take long, to be honest with you. I mean, Troy Reeder's not a bad player, but I think he's better as a rotational player than a starter.
Type of player,
yeah,
plug and play.
Yep. Then of course we also have Troy Dye, who has been around.
He's one of those other players I'm about done with that experiment. I was done with that experiment 2 years ago, to be honest.
I remember you saying that. Then also we have Ivan Pace Jr., who I fully believe is going to make the 53 man.
I haven't even seen him play in as a Viking yet.
No, I would be shocked if he's not on the 53, and he's going to be primary backup to Jordan Hicks, and I would assume by 2024 it's going to be
Hicks,
him,
and Asamoah, and fucking Pace.
And Pace will be the starting linebackers, I believe.
A nasty tandem of interior linebackers right there.
Yep. Then beyond those guys, we have William Kwenku, Wilson Huber, and Abraham Beauplan. Kwenku played last year. He got in,
and he did decent.
He held his own. I think he stands. If they keep 5 inside linebackers, he stands a good chance.
Number 5,
getting that 5. It's going to be down between him and Troy Dye. Depends if how they like Dye versus him.
But rid of Dye.
I'm not big on that either. But so then we move out to the edge rushing position, where of course we still have no resolution, I guess, on the whole Danielle Hunter situation. At this point, it's looking like Hunter's going to either play for us or he's not going to play this year. There's still a chance within the next few days that something gets done there. Hunter's camp is.
I think even outside of Hunter, there's still plenty of talent to be had there at the edge, that we have on tap right now.
But of Hunter's caliber and proven talent, no.
That's right. Not proven talent, but I believe there's enough talent there to compensate for the loss of Hunter.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go on record saying right now, if Danielle Hunter does not play for the Vikings right now with our current crop of edge rushers, I'm concerned.
I am a little bit concerned, but not ready to hit the panic button.
Well, I mean, we got, Marcus Davenport on the other side. He's
up and down
so much that the inconsistency worries me there. Now, I think he probably has a good season here because I think Flores will play.
Done contract, so yeah, you would hope so.
And he seems to be like Zimmer. He's that every other year thing, and this should be an up year if it follows that trend. So, not that means anything, but then of course we have.
The thing is now the guys you're about to talk about are the ones that have been chomping at the bit to have the opportunity, which is what is, to me, will be intriguing to see how it plays out if Hunter's not here.
We have DJ Wanham, who, he's going into the final year of his contract.
Flashes of decent play.
Yeah, but then he has flashes of very good play. Then he has games where he'll disappear for 2 or 3 games straight.
Yeah. Well, when you're basically spelling like Zadarius Smith, or whatever all year, then you're only going to see a handful of snaps a game. So I mean, it's kind of hard to get into a rhythm too.
But even when Hunter was hurt a couple of years ago and he started. Yeah, he had 8 sacks, but 5 of those were in 2 games against the Bears.
But one of those sacks that he got that season was a game killer sack. Yeah. That was against Aaron Rodgers of all people.
Right. So
he put his name on the map right there with that.
Right.
Sack.
But 3 sacks in 15 games and 5 in 2 others.
It kind of reminds me like of a Stephen Weatherly type, in the 4-3 that we used to run.
Yeah, Weatherly had
in that type of player, type of range, but let's hope that that's not the case.
Yeah, Weatherly put a good year into getting a contract with Carolina, and then he fell off the planet after that.
And then same thing with Odegnabo too, but from back in the day was kind of like that as well. So it'll be the talent is there. It's just we haven't seen enough to really gauge how well these guys would do in the starting role.
Yeah. Now these next two guys here, I still have pretty high hopes for. Patrick Jones II. He showed out pretty well last year when he got the opportunity to play.
I feel like he's been on a short leash, and they just haven't let him just go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just like another potential high risk, low risk, high reward type of player, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with significant playing time, Pat Jones is a 5 to 6 sack guy, easy enough. Is he going to get 10 to 15? I don't
Depending on how he is used out at the edge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that might be asking a little much to get that kind of production out of him, but 5 to 6 sacks, I think easily can be done. This kid, Andre Carter II, I'm big fan of this kid. I think, again, he's a little undersized from a weight perspective, but I mean, he's a big kid otherwise.
It's not from the height perspective, but
because he's like 6'4", 6'5", whatever it is, but he's a little bit light
for our likings.
Yeah, but I mean, with the weight program and stuff that the NFL teams have, I'm confident he'll be able to get that muscle put on.
The dude has a hell of a wingspan. The dude does have a hell of a wingspan. At 6'7", you would hope so.
Yep.
And that bend, the only question mark coming out of college with Carter II was his bend around the edge, and that could be coached. So,
yeah, I think so too. But he's going to be a work in progress for a little while.
Yeah, he is absolutely going to be.
Then the other three we have Luigi Vallon, Curtis Weaver, and Benton Whitley.
Out of those three, I would like to see what Vallon brings to the table.
I like Vallon. He played a little bit last year and flashed a couple of times. I think at the very least,
project edge rusher is what my opinion of Vallon is at this point.
Yeah, at very least, he's a definite practice squad candidate.
Yeah,
because I don't know how. I think I don't know if they carry more than 4 edge rushers. I forget how many we carried last year.
I would say 4 would probably be what they will carry. Yeah, that sounds like a good number.
Then we move.
Guys are going to have to show up to really even make the practice squad, in my opinion. So
yeah. Then we move back to the secondary, where the biggest issues and battles, of course, are going to come out of the cornerback position. As it sits right now, penciled in as your starters. If they go with the nickel / slot corner, you're going to have Byron Murphy Jr. probably playing inside with Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth Jr. on the outsides. Now, if they're not running nickel, then my guess is it would be Evans and Murphy outside. Booth,
depending on how he looks.
Yeah, and that's
he likes to flap his gums. I want to see some. I want to see him walk the walk.
Yeah,
for real.
As Toby Keith once said, need a little less talk and a lot more action.
That's a great song, man.
I know it is.
Country right there.
But beyond those three, Mekhi Blackman, and I've talked about him quite a bit since we drafted him. I really high on this kid.
By the end of the season.
I think he's starting by midseason at the latest.
Well, I'd be okay with that.
Whether it's because he outplays one of the other guys, or Booth can't stay healthy,
right?
Or Evans hasn't figured out how to
stay healthy for a full season since high school. So that's right.
And that's the thing. Once Blackman gets that opportunity, I don't think he's going to give it back.
No, once he gets that opportunity to get out there and start, it's no looking back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Then beyond that, Joanne Williams, the guy we got out. Joanne, the guy we got from New England. I think
he stands the X factor here, in my opinion, as far as the rounding out the cornerback room. In my opinion,
yeah, he stands a pretty good chance of making the roster, I think. And then, of course, Jay Ward, who we drafted, cornerback / safety. I think they're playing with him.
You gotta hang on to him. You gotta hang on to him. He's a gadget player on defense.
I believe they're playing with him as to have him be the backup slot guy, to at least to start with. And if somebody goes down, they have to move Murphy outside, then he rolls into the slot possibly. I fully expect him to make the roster. I mean, if he doesn't, they whiff badly on a pick. But he can also play safety, which
exactly. I would be surprised if Ward doesn't make the final 53.
Yep. Then the rest, of course, Tay Gowan, Kalon Barnes, who is fast as hell.
It's true, yeah.
We've yet to see what he can do in coverage and things like that, but he's got closing speed to catch up to these guys if necessary. He stands
speed, but you can't just rely on your speed at the quarterback positions like Wayne's did either.
Right. And I think he probably stands a decent shot at making the final roster. All depends, again, on how many cornerbacks we keep.
Yeah, and one thing is that you can't teach speed, so.
No. Then also, of course, we have Najee Thompson, C.J. Colden Jr., and Jalen Williams.
Practice squad candidates.
Yeah, at best.
At best,
Camp bodies. Maybe one of them will pop out and impress us, but I don't have a whole lot of hopes there. Then, of course, rounding out the secondary, we also have the safety position, Harrison Smith, of course.
Right, penciled in at number 1.
But then we still have a dogfight going on. We have first-round pick Lewis Seen from last year, who's now back and healthy, that has to earn his way up there. You have
the dogfight for that number 2 safety spot. It really is.
You have Cam Bynum, who was a starter last year.
I believe Bynum's on the bubble, in my opinion.
I think he does. I think there's a very strong issue there. The
Metellus has been outplaying him.
The coaches love Josh Metellus. I mean, he got the captain's C late last year when Brian O'Neill went down as a backup safety and a special teams guy. That should tell you something right there.
He's penciled in this year, unless
Yeah, he's making the roster. There's no question about that. So I agree with you. I think Bynum probably is going to have to fight for a roster spot. It's not given to him by any means.
The fact that you haven't seen anything out of Seen yet, and it's only his second year, you can't really. It'd be a hard cut. It really would be, and he's a first rounder, so he's almost penciled in too. Seen.
Yeah, there is no way that they are cutting last year's first round pick.
Which puts Bynum on the bubble, because you could use Ward at safety as well.
Yeah,
which is, in my opinion, why Bynum is on the bubble.
Yeah, so I think they only carry 4 safeties, and then they have Ward as that safety cornerback hybrid that can.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. Is there any other positions that you think of where there's going to be any intrigue, or did we? We covered just about every defensive position, of course.
Right.
But
yeah. That's just it. The defense is. There's a lot of question marks all over
the defense.
The
29th or 30th ranked defense from a year ago. Yeah, there isn't too many safe spots. So.
As far as anything else goes, possibility at the guard spot on offense, depending on if we bring somebody in for competition there. Other than that, I think we've pretty much hit on every spot that needs to be talked about going into positional battles and depth chart wise.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about them bringing in Dalton Reisner at guard because he's still sitting out there.
Getting that, possibility of some competition.
At this point in time, unless either Cleveland or Ingram look terrible or one of them gets hurt, at this point in time, I don't know that they're going to bring him in.
With Cleveland, I think you know what you got at guard, so he's penciled in there. Yeah. I think, anyways, as a starter. Ingram got better, as I've said in the past, as the year went on. You heard less of his number being called, and he was starting to look better with his technique and blocking. So can he build off of that is what the question is in training camp and into the preseason.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, we're going to break into our viral video of the week. So you're probably out of beer by now, so go grab yourself a fresh cold one, crack it open, check this out. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, we are back, and as promised from earlier in the show, Lance and I are going to we each have an offensive and a defensive player to watch during training camp, guys that we're going to be paying a little bit extra attention to, and maybe that you guys want to keep an eye on as well. So since I am ever the gentleman, I shall let you go first, Mr. Broderick.
All right, my guy in offense that I'm keeping an eye on is Jordan Addison. The way he hasn't been able to really take part in a lot of the offseason activities due to whatever that mysterious injury was that he had sustained. I'm watching him closely to see how he elevates up the roster and seeing if he could actually get to that number 2 spot before the season begins.
Of course, you're going to have to be real quick to watch him because if he's going 140 miles an hour, it's going to be hard to see him. So,
right, no kidding.
I'm here all week, ladies and gentlemen. Tip your wager.
What about you on offense?
On offense, for me, I'm going with one of the undrafted rookies, wide receiver Malik Knowles. I'm pretty high on this kid. I watched him in Kansas State quite a bit. The kid is a gadget player. He does a lot of stuff. He's a kind of a Percy Harvin light kind of a player. He can run out of the backfield. He can play wide receiver. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can return kicks and punts. He does a little bit of everything. Kind of a Deebo Samuel light. Also, another good comparison. I think this kid's going to surprise some people. Now, I think he stands a chance of making the 53.
Where'd he go?
If he doesn't, they're going to try everything they can to keep him on the practice squad, which might be tough if he shows out the way I think he might. But that's my offensive guy. Anyway, I'm really interested to see what he can do in Kevin O'Connell's offense. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him. How about your defensive guy? Who you got?
I'm going to be keeping an eye on Brian Asamoah during the training camp and preseason portion of the offseason. I want to see him take that next step and earn that starting role over Reeder. The dude has, huge amounts of talent. It's just, can he put it all together and become a starter that we are all hoping and envisioning that he could be?
All right. On my defensive guy, I'm looking at Kiris Tonga. Of course, he was named as one of the ones to watch for a breakout season. I forget which publications, if it was one of the SI people or if it was ESPN. I forget which one it was, but
it was earlier in the offseason.
Yep. I mean, Tonga showed out pretty well when he got to play last year. And, he has that opportunity to be that big, nasty stuffer up in the middle that we've been looking for ever since the big goon left.
Right. Yeah, since Joseph has been gone.
Yeah, and Tonga. I mean, he's got that mean streak to him, and he, stopping that run up the middle is something we have struggled with for quite some time. And
I'd say for the past 3 seasons at least. Yeah.
At least, yeah. And I think Tonga's ready to take that next step, and I think he's going to turn out to be an absolute steal for us. Whether they use him much in passing situations, I don't know yet. Like we talked about before, he may be that first, second down run guy, and then they run in somebody like Ja'Kalen Roy or somebody.
He was getting some good hurries on the quarterback though last season.
Yeah, and he was getting pressure up. He was able to collapse that pocket up the middle too, which your nose tackle doesn't necessarily have to get sacks, but if you can push that center back into the quarterback, as we've seen how many times over the years where Garrett Bradbury gets.
He was doing things I was hoping to see Harrison Phillips do, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. But to me, Harrison Phillips was never suited to be a nose tackle. Harrison Phillips should be
on the
5 tech or defensive end
defensive end in a 3-4, right?
Right. So I'm really intrigued to see what Tonga can do given the starter's role.
Right.
And I think he's going to. He's not going to disappoint, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think he's going to embrace that role, and hopefully he's a staple in our defense for a while now. So, moving forward.
Right. Anything else you want to cover tonight, Lance?
I think we got everything covered pretty well. It turned out to be a pretty good show. A lot more information than I thought we would have to share, but worked out pretty well.
Yeah. All right. So then with that, that's all we've got for this evening. Again, if you have not done so, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, pound it, beat it with a sledgehammer. Tell your friends to subscribe. It helps out the metrics a ton, helps us climb the ladder and bring more and better content for you guys week after week after week. Again, if you're out and about on the lake this weekend or whatever, take us with you, whether it's YouTube, one of your standard audio podcast channels. We're pretty much everywhere. Don't forget, next week, we'll have Rhinos Rants on Monday. Brunswick's Best will return on Wednesday with number 14. And, of course, our regular studio show next Friday, where we should have plenty of talk from training camp to go over. So make sure you stay tuned for all that. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. And with that, why don't you take us home, Lance?
Thanks, guys, again, for watching this week. I hope you got something out of the episode. I'm looking forward to training camp. We're a few days away, and then that's where it all starts. So with that being said, take care of yourself this weekend. Don't make dumb decisions like Jordan Addison did. And we'll go from there. Millie, Aubrey, if you're out there watching, Dad loves you. Skol.
Have a good weekend, everybody.